ESPN Radio 94.1. Matt Hatfield here, joined by a special guest here at the Emory Henry football camp held at Booker T. Washington High School in Norfolk. He's a guy that was the Virginia High School League Virginia Coach of the Year in 1998 when he was coaching at Kickingham High School. He had a couple of state playoff runs there and went on to great heights. James Madison University, part of a national championship staff in 2004, also an assistant at Virginia Tech with the Hokies and Frank Beamer, and he's a 1982 grad of Emory Henry, the head coach of the Wasps, getting ready for, is it year number 9? Curt Newsome, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back in the Tidewater.
Is it year 9 for you now at Emory Henry? Hard to believe if it is.
Yes, it is hard to believe, but they're adding up wherever I've been, and this transition to Division II is it's the only level of football I haven't coached. I coached Division I at Tech, 1AA at JMU, Division III. I guess my next step will be Pop Warner.
I don't know about all that, and you've done it quite well. 6-4 campaign, which we'll talk about in your final year at Division III ranks. But, Coach, being back in Tidewater and recruiting the whole state like you guys have done so well, even though Emory Henry's 6 hours away, you're getting Tidewater talent, which we'll discuss. But I imagine it has to bring back some memories and rekindle some of those great battles in the PD. And Mike Smith, who's now given up as the head coach at Hampton High after all his glorious years. I know you guys are good friends.
Yeah, we are very good friends, and it's not the same, with him not around. He did so much for football in the whole Tidewater area. He made everybody step up their game, and he kind of set the bar, and he'll be missed, but I think Woodrow will come in and do a great job.
Even though the guy's got more state championships and wins than anybody else, and I don't think that'll ever get broken, you do have a couple of victories in your feather in your cap. How about that 1995 12-8 win at Kickingham? And then in 1998, I think it was 5 overtimes, 14-8. How about those games?
Yeah, there were a couple close ones. That one, he went on to win the state that year by about 50 points. The one we beat him, we didn't go to the playoffs at 9-1, which was kind of disappointing. But
now they get it at 2-8, right?
That it's really changed as far as getting in the playoffs.
But I'll tell you what, Coach, certainly the memories there. And then watching things in college football, let's talk about your current situation at Emory Henry. You guys making this move from the ODAC in Division III now up to Division II. It's the South Atlantic Conference. I believe it's 14 schools encompassing programs from Virginia here as well as North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. You got to be pretty pumped because of the scholarship opportunities now it affords you guys.
Well, it brings us back to the Tidewater. We weren't going to be able to get many players from down here without scholarship money. And now there's only 4 schools in the state playing Division II, and that's UVA Wise, Virginia State, and Virginia Union. So it allows us the opportunity to, those guys that fall through the cracks that we think should be 1AA or FCS players. That's who we think we've signed several of those already from down here.
What's been the biggest difference you've noticed here in recent years, especially from your days at James Madison and Virginia Tech to now at Emory Henry in the recruiting game? I'm sure we'll touch on the NIL and the things with the transfer portal, but what's been the biggest difference, especially now in the last year or two where COVID has, taken over and we've seen it a little bit more difficult in a lot of ways to see people in person? You have to rely on the film even more than ever before.
Well, there's more available high school players right now because of the transfer portal. Yeah. That's probably the biggest thing. Is there's a lot of high school players that would be taken, but the transfer portal, that's where everybody's recruiting out of, including us. I mean, we're recruiting out of it too, but it opens up. There's more high school talent available.
When you look at what's taken place here with NIL and this portal, some pros, some cons, more cons than pros, and how does it affect you all at Emory Henry making this transition from Division III to Division II? I imagine it doesn't have some of the same ramifications it does for the big boys at the Power 5 and D1 levels.
Right. Well, what happens, you get a great player that probably should be Division I and he slid through the cracks. If they play very well, they'll put themselves in the portal and you've lost them. So you're still recruiting guys once they get to your place, and that makes it different. As far as the NIL, we've got a great fan base, and I think it'll allow us some opportunity because our alumni, and but it's kind of turned into the wild west, and it's a little scary that it's just going to be used not to. I think it initially was set up to where if a guy comes to your program and does well, he can get a package with someone. Mm-hmm. But now it's hey, if you come here, you get this. And I don't think that's what it was meant to be, but that's what it's turning into.
If I were to put you in charge, Curt Newsome, make you a czar, what changes would you like to see made first and foremost in college football that would affect maybe your program or other programs, be it locally, statewide, nationally? What would you like to see change perhaps in the sport?
Well, I think the portal is kind of scary for football. The NIL, I don't fear that as much, but the portal, I think there has to be some restrictions on the transfer, and I don't know exactly what they would be, but it's just free agency right now, and I don't think that's good for college football.
You're recruiting so well across the state, whether it be out there in the southwest part of Virginia, the central part of Virginia, Richmond, Northern Virginia, and Tidewater. What's the secret to your success recruiting statewide? And then here in the 757, where you've done it so effectively, whether it was at JMU, Virginia Tech, or now at Emory Henry, getting some all-region, all-state level players to come to your school.
Well, I think it's still about relationships with the kids. It's about getting in buildings. Mickey and Coach Beamer both, it was one of these deals where every May you went in every building in this state. So, if I had 60 schools, I was in 60 schools. Now, you don't always do that in the January phase of it and the December, but the May phase, building relationships with the coaches, I think that's still important. And then with the kids, being a great listener, I think, is the biggest thing in being a great recruiter.
Of course, social media is now such a big deal. I imagine your staff has to use that even more than you, but being visible is what it comes down to when it's all said and done.
No question. And you're right in that, that's kind of old school what I'm talking about, but it's the way I still recruit because, I have gray hair. I don't have Twitter.
Lastly, Coach, I'd appreciate your time. Look forward to getting you back on. 6-4 last year in 2021, fine season, 4 losses by 3 points or less, some close games. Yeah. But give us a thumbnail on this coming year's team as you recap a little bit of last year, and then this new South Atlantic Conference where you got, I think some of the schools consist of like Wingate, Catawba, you mentioned UVA Wise, Tusculum, Carson, Newman, and others. How do you kind of look at it?
We don't really understand what we're playing against because we've never really seen them. So, we would have had a very older team in the ODAC. Mm-hmm. And I think an older Division III player that's above average can play against a young Division II player. So I'm hoping that pans out. But really, the crystal ball is not very clear right now.
He's got roots here in Hampton Roads. Curt Newsome, the head football coach of the Emory and Henry Wasps. Oh, I love that nickname. All the best to you, my friend, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much for everything you do for sports in this area. Thanks, Matt.